kicking off the week with Detective Comics 1027, which they're treating as a big special deal because, of course, Batman debuted in issue 27 of Detective Comics. So this is the Detective Comics 1000 issue anniversary of Batman.
Isn't that a little bit weird? Because in theory,
like 1027.
Yeah,
in theory, 1026 would have been the 1000th issue with Batman.
Well, yes, but no, you are correct. I was going to say, I mean, it is kind of monumental to 1,000 issues of it being a Batman book because what it was before.
Yeah, this is the 1001st, so this is going forward.
Yeah, I mean, technically you're right, but I guess it just doesn't look as good because actually seeing the number 27 means more visually than saying.
There's a more obvious link.
And I wanted to be cranky about it, but then it made sense because I always want to compare it to how they treat Batman and how they treat Superman, and I was like, well, wait, Superman's always kind of been an action book.
I mean, I'm saying anniversary. I don't know if they've specifically used that terminology. This was way more annoying when
on the front cover, Pete, the epic 1000 issue anniversary of The Dark Knight.
Well, to finish my sentence, I was way more annoyed when they kept calling WrestleMania 25 the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania. No, it's not. It's the 24th anniversary of WrestleMania. That's not how this works.
And wasn't that WrestleMania? No, that was WrestleMania X5 was 15, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Ugh. Terrible branding.
Wait, sorry, did they use X5? So they did Roman numerals and regular numbers?
No, 15 was, it was 17 that was X7.
Okay, is that what it was?
What?
Well, no, it's not what you're thinking, Connor. It wasn't X and then the number 7. It was X dash and then the word writ spelled out 7.
That's worse.
That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, this book, I just want to be up in front. I did not read 2 of the stories based off the art alone.
Okay. Interesting.
So it wasn't as much for me to read this because once I saw,
I will guess the 2 if I can. Can I guess Rosmo and John Romita Jr. as the 2 artists in question?
Yeah, I also skipped those, unsurprisingly.
And it kills me because I like Tynan, right? Like I like him a lot.
Kelly Sue.
And I like Kelly Sue. And so the fact that I skipped those, and then I started looking at the art. I could have read the Rosmo one. It wasn't as egregious as some of the other stuff we've seen in these kind of, JR stuff I took way worse because it didn't look bad. It looked like JR, and it pisses me off that clearly put in work for 1027, not nearly enough work for his action run. So, like, come on, man.
I didn't read those. Obviously, I didn't read the Tomasi or Bendis ones either. Basically, this was a 6-issue trade, and I was like, I don't need to read all of that. I'll read like 4 issues worth.
Yeah, Connor's slacking.
No,
skimping.
I was never going to read the Bendis one, and Tomasi. Honestly, part of it was, I think all of Tomasi's in these anniversary issues, the 1000 ones have been underwhelming. They've always just been kind of they're okay. And also, he's the regular writer on Detective. So
we'll see if I agree with you there. There's a lot of assumptions been made here. And so you just didn't read the 2 artist ones, right? Those 2 you mentioned, Matt?
Yeah, I read the rest of them.
Okay, cool.
I just want to say that someone took the art from the Tomasi pages because they're basically 1 page per, there's like a showcase of all the different Bat villains of Brad Walker's art. And I don't know who it was.
Yeah.
But they went and they put them all as one single image. And it almost worked better for me than the actual story, just to see the showcase.
Well, I mean, that's the first story we're going to talk about here. Because Tomasi's story is first called Blowback, with Brad Walker on art, as you mentioned. And this is actually, like, I mean, at least if it is, it doesn't feel like it's part of the ongoing story that he's doing in Detective. It feels like a completely standalone thing. Which is basically Batman in a tank with essentially a straitjacket kind of style restraint on. And he's basically just trying to think of where he is, how he's going to get out, and it's basically the internal detective brain working.
And I will say, if Action Comics 1000 was just a celebration of Superman, we got Detective 1000 that was a celebration of Batman. This actually held true to the detective name because all the stories I read had a detective thread.
Yeah, there was a lot of that in here for sure.
So,
because it's basically him going through all the villains and basically being like, right, well, over the years, I've thought Joker with his, over the top pranks. I've thought the Penguin with his gangster style stuff, and yeah, it's a showcase of like all the different like costumes and eras and all the rest of it. But it's basically him saying that he's built up such a good detective bank in his head because he's dealt with so many different types of villains, essentially. So yeah, it's an excuse to have all these splash pages of all these different villains.
And so, as an excuse to do those splash pages and see Brad Walker draw all the different ones, that was pretty cool. The Ultimate Resolution fell flat with me. It was some guy that we've never,
It was better than the excuse. I mean, for doing all these pages was better than normal. Mm-hmm. I felt.
Yeah, and that's fine. I just wish the resolution was better because, like you have some Z level gangsters in Gotham that you could have pulled from, and I'm not familiar with this guy that it ends up being. That Batman eventually figures it out because he remembers a sneeze, right? And then the guy that he ends up in the last page, is having allergies or cold or whatever. And
I do want to mention before we start talking about the ending properly is that in the page with Mr. Freeze and Clayface has big giant knives coming out of his clay fingers, which I thought was inspired.
Yeah.
So,
I also really like the Man-Bat page. Man-Bat looks proper scary, which I think sometimes gets lost because I've been so used to Justice League Dark Man-Bat. And he's, kind of a fun character, like a cartoony version, and you forget that, oh no, he's basically a werewolf but a bat. And he's supposed to be scary.
Yeah, I liked how they kind of themed some of the villains together in pairs, because he was on the same page as Scarecrow, and it was the idea this is the two like doctors, the two scientists who, and then you had like Harley and Ivy were together, obviously. It's things like that. I mean, I wasn't really that super familiar with this guy at the end either, but I did kind of like the whole idea is that it's just Batman figured it out. He used his detective work to figure it out. So I wasn't too down on the ending. But that was the first one.
Yeah. I just wish it was like Maxie Zeus or something, not just some nameless. Like, have a little bit more fun, Tomasi. You clearly have a deep hole of Batman.
Are you sure this isn't a character who's been pulled from somewhere before?
I'm trying to think.
Because I don't know him either, but
does he have a name?
I'm not going to assume necessarily.
I don't think he ever has a name.
Oh, maybe he doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's talking about how he's dead and Balsam, something Balsam. Yeah, I'm Caleb. No, hold on, time to celebrate. No, that's not a name. Shoot.
But it doesn't really matter. I'm just putting out there that maybe we just don't know him. That's kind of my point.
Yeah.
So, but I thought, I mean, it wasn't my favorite of the book by any means, but I thought it was solid and it was a fun series of pages to go through. Because it really felt. I mean, a lot of the stories in these anniversary issues do tend to try, at least some of them try and do this kind of let's have a collage of all the years and see all of the rogues gallery and let's go through all the eras and try and like celebrate the 80+ years of the Batman and all that stuff. And as the opening, as the one that did that, it was a fine, perfectly enjoyable attempt at it. The second story was the Bendis one, and I'm sure Cara would disagree, but I think he missed out because I think this is actually a really good story. It's
a good story, but I know Connor would hate it.
He probably would.
The amount of banter back between all of them.
Oh, but this was good banter though.
It was, but in a vacuum, Connor's gonna see all the bubbles, and he's gonna get upset.
I have like flicked through the pages. There's a page with like a body and just so much just bubbles, boxes around it, and then there's like a 9-panel grid after that with so much words.
But this is an example of Bendis banter working really well, and I honestly like. I felt like I loved this Bat Family story so much that, like, if Bendis ends up in a Bat book after this, I'm not going to be that upset.
But
I'll be upset if he ends up on 2 Bat books.
Yeah. I mean, but if there's like a Batman family book, call it whatever.
I meant if he's on like Batman and Detective.
No, I know.
I'll be upset.
I think it's okay if it's just one book.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But no. Also, I really enjoy the art in this one because it's Marquez.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I hadn't said what the arse was because I've not got the credits page yet. But the premise of this one is that there's a dead body, like a corrupt policeman, is just lying dead on the top of it's a roof somewhere with a lot of building, high rises around it, and one by one, more or less, the Bat family kind of like arrive there, not because they've all been intentionally went there, because they've all stumbled onto the body. So it's Robin first, then Nightwing, and then Batgirl shows up, then Spoiler and Red Robin, and and it was just actually fun seeing some of these characters interact, because when was the last time we had Barbara and Stephanie like interact together?
Yeah, it's been a while.
I know, right?
But yeah, I like that it is the core Bat family, and I like how they all kind of show up. Like, so of course Damian's there first, right? Because it's Damian, and then Nightwing shows up, and you get all the interactions between them, and then Babs shows up, and it's just slow like reveal of everybody is real fun. And then when Batman shows up,
I love when Batman shows up, everyone immediately starts assuming, wait, is this a test? Did Batman set this up? This was like a Batman thing. And Batman's like, no, it's not a test, come on. Like,
and my favorite running joke from this is that I think it's Tim keeps saying he smells like Killer Croc, and like, no, that's just Gotham.
No, I'm pretty sure it's Damian who keeps
is it Damian?
I think it's Damian. Yeah. I know Connor complained about that page with the dead body and all the boxes around it, but I loved that page. Because it was basically Batman sent, all of his kids are there, and he's like, okay, let's do the detective work, and one by one they each like sort of look for different clues. I actually really loved this story. I thought this was...
It was good.
And maybe this is a sign that even though I've liked a lot of what Bendis has done in Superman, some of it's not been completely to my taste. And maybe it's just another example of Bendis is really good on more street level stuff. When you give him characters like this dealing with a dead body and like the mystery of it.
Well, like one of my favorite issues of Daredevil has like almost no superhero stuff in it. It's Matt starts going off the deep end and all of his friends. So it's Peter Parker and Danny Rand and Luke Cage, and there's one more. They all come to visit him in his office, and it's a lot of banter back and forth, and it's about, are you sure you're okay? And it's when he ends up becoming the Kingpin. It's really good. This reminded me of that a lot.
So. Yeah, I think it's them basically solving the mystery, sort of realizing he's got this history, and that he's, because essentially the mystery, because it does turn out to be Killer Croc, but is that this woman who was his ex-wife is blackmailing him, or he was blackmailing her, sorry, and this woman sent her new boyfriend to deal with them. And Killer Croc didn't actually... Killer Croc's the boyfriend, which I should make clear. Killer Croc is the new boyfriend. But Killer Croc doesn't kill him. But it turns out the guy like had a heart attack when Killer Croc showed up. He's like, oh, Killer Croc! Oh, and croaked.
Yes.
As you would. But I think what I love about... Because obviously I love the pages with Killer Croc, but I think I love that the vast majority of the story is just them on that roof looking for clues. And like talking about, what the case is.
And looking around and seeing that people are staring at them, right? Because it's an open space.
Yeah, Joy, I loved about it. I loved the feeling of like they're all doing different things. So you have like Tim and Damien and stuff looking at clues and going into the building underneath. But I love that at the same time, more or less, Babs is like grappling up to like a balcony and saying, "Hey, did you guys see anything strange?" To the crowd that are now kind of forming around the skylines.
Also, I think it's in there. I didn't reread it. I read this early in the week. I think there's more shade at Tim Drake because someone calls him, or maybe that's in Batman. That's in Batman. They call him Duck Boy.
That's Harley in Batman.
Yeah, it's Batman.
Yeah, okay, never mind. There's too much Batman this week, guys. I would say there was more shade thrown, and if it was coming from Bendis, I was going to say that was an indication. But no, okay.
But it ends with a great panel of them all in silhouette as Batman flies off after he calls his family good detectives, and they're all just sort of standing there. That was good. That was good.
I feel that sometimes writers forget that Batman can be tender.
Mm-hmm.
That Bruce, and so him leaving here with a smile about his family, like that's the Bruce I like. That's in.
Oh, I've got Bruce more on that from unexpected writers later.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, Steph being included here also fills my heart with joy because you could easily have done this without Steph because you've got the 4 Robins, you've got Babs. So many people would leave it there and they wouldn't go any further. But Steph being included, but if anything, Cass is the only one that now I'm upset it's not included. But
yeah. I was going to say that the only one that hasn't been a Robin was Babs.
Oh, technically, yeah.
I know that spoilers, that's not continuity anymore.
Cass was never really a member of the Bat family, though. She was always like intentionally an outsider.
Right. That's why she's orphan.
Right, but you know, like the whole time, even when she was Batgirl, she was still like a bit of an outsider, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense to me.
But she worked under bad, I don't know. I mean, especially recently with like, you know, the Detective Comics run and what she's been recently in Outsiders. You know,
I kind of expected Duke to be there as much as I don't like him. Like if you're throwing Red Hood in there, kind of.
I'd happily take out Red Hood and put in Duke. I'm not going to make no arguments. That's it. I get from the.
Oh, this is pretty good.
I get from the history perspective that Jason is more important to the overall mythology, but still. But no, so no, I really like this as well. This was kind of your Bat Family celebration thing, and honestly, Bendis on a Bat Family book, because I actually think Bendis might be perfect for a Stephanie Brown dialogue. I mean, obviously we've had snippets of it in Young Justice. I think he's got the right wit for her. I would say, so as much as that would torment Connor, but no, I actually really love this story. But one of the things I'll say about this book as a whole is, and I'm not really saying that I want other specials to be 144 pages, but I will say one of the benefits that kind of came from it is that every story felt like it got enough pages to actually be a proper story.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think the solution on other ones is
to have less.
Still do an 80-page thing, but have 5 writers instead of 10.
No, I agree. Like the solution here is not to make everything 144 pages. It's just to have less stories in those 80-page or 100-page books. But I will say that it kind of like gave them this chance to like, every story is at least like 12 pages, give or take. I don't know. I didn't count, but they all feel long enough to actually feel like they've got a beginning, middle, and end, and they're not just, you know, these little 2 or 3 page things where it's like, that was cute, but wasn't really
not really much of a story.
Yeah. So next up we have the story that goes through all the years. Starts off with year 1, month 11, and then progresses
This is the Fraction and Zdarsky one.
Zdarsky.
Yes,
yeah. I was like, this art is so familiar. Why is this art so familiar? It looks like Byrne. And I was like, I got to the end. I was like, it's Zdarsky. No shit.
I can see the comparison with Byrne, actually.
Yeah, they have the clean lines.
I think Byrne's a little bit cleaner, but I can see it. Yeah.
Some similarities.
It's a bit cartoony.
I do wonder how much research went into this, because as it goes through this, it's like year 3, month 4, and then it's like year 4, month whatever. And because what if it's year 4, month 2, you actually see the classic New Teen Titans in the panel. And I was wondering, like, how much research do you think went into this for them to try and, like, okay, we're going to try and accurately say roughly what the period was in each of these eras.
Knowing Fraction, probably quite a bit.
Yeah,
a lot. Yeah.
And there's references to stuff. There's clearly like a Batman '89 movie reference at one point with the bat plane going towards the balloons, stuff like that.
I just hope Fraction writes some more TC now, because we've gotten the Jimmy, we got this story which I enjoyed. He seems to like playing with the history of the characters. I mean, just look at that whole Jimmy series.
I mean, honestly, I like this as well, because I didn't know it was Fraction till the end, and I was kind of surprised because like, I kind of like
me
that.
too. yeah. No. But yeah.
Hey,
also,
do you
I was getting vibes of what?
I was gonna say, do you know what it is? Maybe this is kind of sort of Bendis, because I liked Fraction's Hawkeye a lot, but I've not really liked these other stuff. Maybe it's slightly like Bendis, where he's just, for at least for me, street level characters where it's not goofier stuff. There's something my thing.
A little bit goofy and special about the entire thing building up to a joke of Batman yelling, "Give me my birthday present."
Sure, yeah, I can see the humor in that.
That felt very on brand for Fraction and the comedy side.
Some of the individual panels are quite nice. So I really like. There's one panel, I think it's in the year 11 sort of period, where Batman's in the sewers looking for Killer Croc. He's got like a flamethrower, and it reminds me of like something you'd seen like Aliens with Sigourney Weaver, but it's Batman going through a sewer with a flamethrower. It's just it's a visual.
Also, we got the year 4, month 7, Batman fighting a Jokerized gorilla with "Do not feed the animals" crossed out in the back, says "Feed the animals." Jokerized panda bear, like.
Hey, the panda works really well for Jokerization because of the white fur.
It does.
Yeah.
Yep. So
I liked all
that.
I think it's just after that page where he pops up in the back of Gordon's car and he's got a world's finest commissioner. not world's best, world's finest.
Yes.
I like that little touch.
I even noticed that the first time. That's quite good.
Oh yeah, and but yeah, just all the stuff, and then it looks, the year 19, month 5.
Yeah, so I should explain what the actual premise of this issue is that basically it's Batman's telling the story in his narration about how basically ever since the Joker appeared, and kind of fell in love with Batman, essentially, is that every month he would give him a birthday present, even though obviously you can have a birthday every month, and he never actually hit Batman's real birthday, of course, because he's the Joker.
Right.
But every month, and it would, essentially the idea being that every time the Joker pulled off some big stunt, it was for Batman's birthday. So it's kind of like a weird continuity thing, but it's this fun idea where, as the issue progresses, it gets more tense because it changes from this is what the present was to every month there's this anticipation of, oh god, what's he going to do for the birthday.
I like that as well. Like there's the unpredictability, because they talk about, some months it was really bad, other months it was a little drawing that he'd made saying best friends.
Yeah, it was nothing. Yeah. And the whole idea of it is that it's all about Batman in this constant state of like, what's he going to do next? The idea that the Joker keeps doing worse and worse things. So it's basically just a commentary on how the Joker makes Batman feel a bit, with all of his big things and antics.
The idea that it got to the very last day of the month. I think it was Halloween, actually.
Yeah.
Of whichever year it was, and nothing had happened yet, and it was, oh god, we're due this month. Quick, we've got to find it before something terrible happens.
Yeah. So
I really like that.
No, it was a good story. It's called Many Happy Returns. So there you go. Next up, we got the Rucka story, which is the story of a young woman who is applying and going through the testing and becoming a police officer in Gotham City. So it's funny because I got into like a page or two of this, and I went, this has to be the Rucka one, because it didn't tell me till the end.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the Rizzo art, it was or Rizzo. Yeah, you just looked at it, and this feels more Gotham Central than Batman.
It does. Down to the fact that by the end of the story, like some of the good cops who show up are, Montoya and Crispus,
Yeah, Crispus Allen, and it's very of the moment, especially here. And it makes me wonder if this is, and I know how politically motivated Rucka gets. I mean, Lazarus just.
I would
slowly
love to see him do a take on Gotham Central now.
Oh, yeah, even just from this glimpse, the hints of him tackling things like police brutality. Because obviously, ever since year one kind of came out, this idea of Gotham City being this corrupt cesspool, where at every level has been a facet to what Gotham City is. So I think him slipping parts of real world politics into the police corruption is so natural and fits so well. And it's funny because I feel like you look at Batman now and more than ever, you're the reason why Batman Year One sort of really worked and why everyone sort of uses it as the foundation is because the idea of the city needing Batman because the authorities themselves are corrupt. Yeah.
Right. That he would fight the corrupt cops as much as he would fight the Joker. I always liked that. And I always liked, even under Commissioner Gordon, he's only one guy, right? And by the time he gets a commissioner, sure, he can clean things up. But he even has his own unit with the major crimes unit. So it's still, as we saw in the Bendis story, corrupt cops and Gotham go together. But yeah, Rucka doing this now, but it was just, I wonder how long ago he's had this idea, if this is just something Rucka, because he is politically minded.
Yeah, I love
capturing real world stuff,
I love the narration here. I thought as it got closer to the end, the idea that the character starts talking about how all the corrupt cops and the others who sort of give in to this temptation, because she's immediately told to, forget the protect and serve crap, you're here to make money, you're doing this, you're doing that. The idea that every single day she says no because she's got a moral, she wants to actually be a good person, she wants to help people, whatever, all the good reasons why someone would want to do that, and she says every day that she doesn't give into it, she's proof to everyone else that they're weak and in the wrong, so that's why they hate her. So it was a really interesting, I thought, examination of the mentality of the others who get angrier and angrier at her
why
for not...
they want to bring them down, because the whole point is they keep using the word rookie as an insult, because she's still fresh and has the idealism, and they hate that because they haven't got that anymore.
Because if she proves that she doesn't have to become like them, it's proof that they have essentially
they've been
wrong.
Either.
Yeah, they've been wrong the whole time by doing it.
It's I'm gonna drag you down into the muck, so you're just as dirty as me.
I mean,
and she's like,
at its
no.
core, it's very hazing, right? The idea that they redo it to the next year of people because they had it done to them, and it's like, well, we had to suffer, so you do too. We gotta stop. And I've listened to numerous shows with the state of the world being what it is.
I've listened to plenty of shows about real world stuff, and it's out there, and this stuff does happen. Like, I can't speak to it exactly. So the fact that he's putting it here in a Batman book, and Batman's always so close to the real world, it's kind of why it works. It's the same with what he did with Lois with the stuff with journalism, right?
Yeah.
The first part of that book was, this is resounding because it's so close to the real world, and sure, Superman's in this book, but the reason that Lois is kind of the focus is you can touch on it more with her. And here, I like that he created a new character, and it's a person of color, and it's a girl. It's a woman.
It adds a bit of I mean, it would work with no matter who, as if the person's a good person and wants to do the right thing, it would work with whoever. But yeah, it adds an extra bit of, just when she sees like evidence being planted on like a black person who they've shot, which because they see them planting a gun on them, is like, it just adds an extra bit of that sting.
Oh, yeah, and also it gave me shades of Far Sector, right? When we got Joe's origin, very similar to this, right? Where
for sure, yeah.
It, so the fact that this is working its way into superhero comics,
I think it's great that this sort of thing's been tackled, and I love how, because our story actually did remind me as I was going through it, just like, if you remember year one, like remember Gordon's story in year one and his frustration of like being in the city, and that the Batman kind of became his only hope. I do love that at the end of this story, when she thinks that she's basically screwed, maybe she has to give in. That's when Montoya and Crispus Allen show up, and then immediately you have the cops basically are going to fight back and start shooting. They're going all out corrupt, and that's when the Batarang comes in, and it's this idea that she felt alone for so long, but ultimately by the ending, the heart of the story is that no, Gordon is there. Gordon's noticed that she's a good cop. Batman's there. Batman's noticed she's a good cop. There are others there to help her. She's not alone in the fight. So there's this.
I really like that panel towards the end where it's just Batman, in the shadows, and you just see him, coming out from behind a wall, talking to Gordon, and then Gordon looking over, and it almost looks like he's looking at, in our direction with the way it's framed. But you just, okay, so Batman said something to him. He's looked over at her, and then the next panel, is him, talking to her and inviting her to the Major Crimes Unit.
Yeah, you can almost that when you say Gordon's almost looking at us, you can almost say this is a more subtle way. Remember, old comics used to do this sort of be good to each other. Superman,
right?
It's almost that. It's Gordon looking at us saying, no, be the good cop, because there's other people out here who will have your back and will support you and will hold up to things up to the standard they should be held up to. And so. No, it was a nice. Obviously, the story's called Rookie, if that wasn't obvious. No, this was wonderful.
Yeah, it's a great story.
Yeah,
I mean, it struck coming back to Gotham. So
yeah, I think this was the one where I got to the end of it. I think the Bendis one I felt it as well, but this is one where I got to the end of it. I was like, I'm glad that got so many pages, because it wasn't quite a full 20-page issue, but it felt close enough to it.
I actually felt that in the last one as well, in the sense that I can see this functioning in 8 pages, but you have to really cut down how many years you flash through, how many examples you show. I think having that time in that previous story really kind of showed how much every month it wore him down, waiting for it. That worked. The
length of each of these, even though it's a really long book, actually did help with each story. So obviously there's maybe a couple I would cut, because I don't like them, but the ones that are good benefit greatly from those extra pages, I think. So that's the Ruckus story. Very, very good stuff. So next up we have the one with the the art. What would you call him? Rosmo, thank you. I think we're just talking about Rizzo. We're just talking about Rizzo, so I was like, no,
right. Rizzo.
Yeah, it's not him again.
Yeah, it kind of drives me nuts because it's also got Deadman in there.
Yeah, I saw that flicking through.
Yeah, the story here is that Deadman is working with Batman and Robin, young Dick Grayson, to take down some evil spirits, and Deadman possesses Batman to help. And it's basically a story about how Batman has not been scared of ghosts since he was a kid, ever since he had a conversation with his mother when he had a nightmare. And Deadman's like, oh, that's cool. It's weird, but it's cool that you're not scared of ghosts. And it kind of ends with, after they've dealt with the thing, Deadman's kind of like, hey, if you want a favor, I could, your parents' ghosts are probably out there. I could probably go and find them. And Batman declines and says, no, I know they're out there. I don't have to do that, but thank you anyway. So, I mean, that's basically it. It's an alright little story for the most part. I kind of hated the art, though, in every way possible. Batman's eyes were pissing me off.
Just flicking through it, I hate Batman's eyes. I hate how elongated and stretched out Deadman is a lot of the times.
And Robin, look at he's lanky.
At least he looks like people lanky. Deadman just looks unnatural. I know he's a ghost, but that's not what how Deadman is typically portrayed.
The 2-page layout that's in the middle of it, when Batman's kicking like the spirit dude in the face, the art on that page is like basically eye-stabbingly bad to me. I hate it. I hate the look in his face. I hate the way his legs are bent. I hate all of it. Not for me. So I was pleasant. The last time we got a Rosmo story in an anthology book, I was surprised I actually kind of liked it because the art was a bit more subdued and it worked for the story it was telling. I think this one I wasn't as into. I think the story was bad though. It was definitely my least favorite of the one so far though. I think I would say comfortably.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, Matt. What's up?
Nothing. I'm just checking something. Someone called me and I'm trying to figure out why, and they haven't called me back, and I'm trying not to have it go off.
Yes.
So I'm just checking.
Very professional.
Yeah.
So there's a pin up next by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
There's not actually that many pinups in this one.
I thought it was odd.
Wesley story.
Yeah, I thought it was odd though that there is some, but they didn't start until this book because this is already like almost halfway through the book or something like that. Or yeah, almost. We're getting there.
Yeah, coming up to it, I suppose.
Yeah. It was quite far in to start the pinups when there is more.
And they're not like after every story from here on out, I don't think. There's just like another 2 or 3 maybe.
It's a bit weird. So next up we have the Kelly Sue story, which unfortunately is the one with the John Romita Jr. art.
Yes, and I have better things to do in my life than willingly read a John Romita Jr. art, so...
Well, out of respect for Kelly Sue, I suffered through it.
There you go.
So this is a really simple story. Bruce is on a golf course in the rain with this bad guy, and the bad guy's trying to buy a building that Bruce owns, and Bruce doesn't want to give it up. And it intercuts with Batman taking on a bunch of thugs, and it's just kind of like his determination and work ethic and all that stuff. The twist of the story is that Bruce actually is wearing a wire for Gordon. And so he's actually helping the police force as Bruce Wayne here to catch out this guy who's actually fully corrupt, and he's paid off judges, he's paid off whole city council departments and stuff like that. So they get all this on tape, and he comes in. Bruce does have a little stylish moment. I'll call it the extreme Happy Gilmore moment, where the guy tries to run and Bruce kind of just throws a golf club at him and trips him up in the legs. But I will say that's probably the only thing in the art I like is the panel of the spinning golf club, which he's actually done sort of it also like a wheel coming at you because of the way it's sort of been drawn with all the permutations of the golf club spinning around. Obviously the art is pretty dire. I hate these faces.
It's still better than anything in action. Just by browsing it.
I mean, it's not saying much, but
I don't know if it's telling the story effectively, but the fact that you pointed out that golf club panel.
Yeah.
I mean,
true. Yes. Well, he tends to be okay with motion. It's just faces and everything else with detail.
I will never forgive him for Caveman Superman.
I'll never forgive him for getting to Chief Moore and being like, wait, is this a Sandman character? Who is this?
Yeah, that's true.
Who is this character? Oh, it was a character I liked, and she's dead now, and now I don't... I wasn't even sure it was her for the first, 3 pages. Alright, next up. We have a story, some treasure hunting going on here. We got was it Patrick Wayne, Bruce's grandfather, was saving a lot of art during World War II. And
before World War II.
Was it before World War II? Sorry.
Yeah, they obviously it was in the years coming up where they knew things were going to come down. It's like, all right, let's get things to safety.
You're right. Just before World War II. Well, I remember the saving from the Nazis, so I assume World War II.
Yeah. Plays in later.
But so they're actually off the coast of Scotland, funnily enough. When we don't see a lot of it in this flashback. What actually happens? We see a crash. The helicopter comes in. But we cut to present day, and Bruce is on a podcast. We have a team of podcasters who are going to be web streaming the expedition to the boat. I thought
this was really weird. There's a team of podcasters. There's 4 of them who are all grandchildren of famous Gotham detectives. What? Like one of them being that, sure, but then oh no, we made a super team.
As silly as that is, I low key love it because it's so Silver Age.
Like when it was just the first one, because Bruce is like, oh yeah, your grandfather or whatever was a great detective, and almost made me want to become a detective.
I was a little bit worried though that after reading this, Matt was going to get some ideas and be like, hey, see for next week's episode, can we all go like scuba diving and like do the podcast looking for treasure? I want to do some exploration.
I don't know if you guys would be the ones that would ask to go scuba diving, but hey,
why not?
So I looked up all of these characters and their relations.
Yes.
Because as you do. And
as you do.
So Roy Raymond Jr. He's actually been in the DC universe before as Owlman before Forever Evil. I don't know if you guys read Outsiders right before.
I did not. No.
Rebirth. Yeah, there was a new Owlman that was very much like Night Owl from Watchmen. And yeah, so that character has been, his Roy Raymond was his grandfather, and that plays out. And then you have the Compass was Captain Compass, who was a nautical themed detective in the pages of Detective Comics. Of course, you have Bradley, who's Slam Bradley's granddaughter, and where's the last one?
Saunders,
which of course is Speed Saunders, who is also, which would mean they're related to Hot Girl, who is Kendra Saunders, who was Speed's grandniece. So
I don't know. Matt said Hot Girl so quickly. I thought he said Hot Girl for a second.
I mean, on
both are applicable.
CW show. It's the same thing, right?
So this is the Marv Wolfman story, just to be clear with the email
by Lupacino, which the inks and the color, I would say, did not help Lupacino.
I liked the washed out style of the colors. Yes. I just wish they weren't quite as flat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're flat and the inks are heavy. Like you look at some of the art, it really was reminding me of some Hill House stuff.
I was going to say, the inks remind me of stuff you get on like a Murphy book, like if you look like The Wake, especially on some of the faces as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say I like some of the ideas in this story. It's one of my least favorite stories in the book, though. I think that when it got towards the ending and there was like a double turn was happening underwater, and they were saying, "Oh, this is what really happened. This didn't happen." I actually didn't think it was the through line of thought didn't necessarily feel that smooth to me. So when it got to the end, I was just kind of like, "Oh, okay." I kind of get the gist of what happened because of all the dialogue afterwards, but it wasn't actually that clear. I don't think in the pages initially.
I loved how silly it was.
Of course you did.
Yeah, like this is right up my alley. Like if they announced they were going to do a follow-up one shot to this, I'd buy it in a heartbeat.
This is the Batman movie that James Cameron will make if he ever does one. He'll be like, yeah, we'll do expeditions. Yes, we'll go deep sea diving.
Sign me up. And it might help that there's very little Batman in this. Like he's there.
Oh yeah.
For like 2 pages at most.
Yeah, and so.
Well, obviously, this is one of these things where it's celebrated. The reason why these are all grandchildren or whatever of the detectives is to celebrate all the old detectives. Many of whom obviously were in Detective Comics
at one point. Was Detective Comics.
I just feel like at that point, just do a story with those detectives. It's fine. Right. We could, we're an anthology one shot. It doesn't have to be the grandchildren.
Legacy characters,
This was his idea for a story. He wanted to do a legacy thing with them all in the present day. I get it. That was his idea. Nothing wrong with that. So next up we got the Silver Ghost story, which is Grant Morrison and Chris Burnham, and of course Morrison is one who goes deep into the old school stuff here. This is basically the story of the wannabe sort of PI vigilante who becomes Silver Ghost. He spends time really thinking about, there's all these Slam Bradleys, I'm never going to stand out, what can I do? And he starts to, maybe I'll wear a mask, maybe I'll have a persona, a name with a colour in it, because those sound really catchy, and he's got like a lair, and the art's really cool, and he's like, if I don't do this, who else will? And he's going to his first big job as the Silver Ghost, and through the skylight, the Detective Comics 27 version of Batman with the purple gloves comes in and beats the living crap out of everyone, and the Silver Ghost just hangs up his stuff.
I've not read Detective Comics 27 in years at this point.
Uh-huh.
Is this the first story? Is this the story in that? This is supposed to, and this is just, because it was ringing enough bells that I'm like, this feels familiar, and also it's Morrison's. I'm like, this feels like what Morrison would do, and it would be literally Batman's first appearance, his first night, just undercutting Silver Ghost.
Yeah,
I love it.
I like
this is called Detective 26 because there's he's the 26th, but also he's almost to Batman, right? You look at the idea board, and there's Sherlock Holmes and Zorro and what looks like a Gaucho, the wings from like the Da Vinci flying machine.
Yeah, the name,
and the utility belt, like, and
the name almost has a double meaning because it's obviously we think of Detective 27 as being the start of Batman, so it's got that kind of meta, it's the one before Batman, but it's also the way it comes up in the stories when he's thinking about it, and he just sort of says, there's all these other detectives. What am I? I'm like detective number 26. It was just like he could have picked any number. Obviously, it's 26 because
27's the important one.
Yeah. So, no, that's fun. Honestly, this is one of these things where I saw Grant Morrison's there, and I'm like, okay, right, this could go either way. And I actually thought it was a well done little story with a nice, funny kind of twist to it. It wasn't a surprising twist. Obviously, you kind of expect it to build up to what it's building up to, but
I did enjoy it though. I enjoyed just the comedy of it. I thought it was really well told. I thought Burnham's art is really well suited for this. And the sequential timing of it is right up there.
Yeah.
Good Lord, there were so many. I just pulled up the actual Detective 26 on a wiki. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 different stories in there.
Yeah. Obviously, I said earlier, I've been rereading Super Gods, and the first part is about the creation of Superman and then Batman in that order, and it talks about how with Batman, Superman was this lightning in a bottle kind of chance inspiration, whereas Batman, you can feel the manufacturing. And he wasn't alone. He's just the one that happened to take off. But you can feel it in those preceding issues of Detective, just them throwing everything at the wall, being like, we've got to find the one that'll stick. That something's in here, and I think that kind of shows.
I think in retrospect, it's really funny to look at it though, because obviously in hindsight, it's like Batman is so popular, has been so successful, endured so much, been a staple character for 80+ years that. No, I mean they found it. They found the one that stuck.
you can be. You look at it and go, "How can it have been anything but Batman?"
Yeah. So it's like almost like if you try enough, you will hit that $1 billion idea. Because let's face it, Batman was $1 billion idea. They didn't know it for a long time, obviously, until they started making that amount of money. But I mean, Batman must have made billions of dollars by now.
Yeah, but not to Bill Finger.
Oh, okay, yes, that's the sad part. Yes, I agree. So then the next story is this was kind of a weird one. This is the Tom King one with Walter Simonson on the art. I wasn't super hot in this one. How did you guys feel?
It feels like a prologue to the Batman Catwoman.
Yeah, that's what I felt. And it's very King. It's very cerebral and very, him with Dr. Phosphorus and Phosphorus wanting, to let Batman know that he's the one that killed him eventually by giving him cancer.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're just like, damn, King, you're dark, man.
I mean, I like the idea of Phosphorus being like, yes, you'll know it was me that did it. It was me. Like no one else could kill Batman, but technically I did it. I mean, it took a while to kick in, but I did it. I appreciate the idea in that, and the idea of Selina being with him. I will say, Simonson's art, I'm not in love with here.
I like it well enough. I don't think it's his best work, that's for sure. I really like the pacing of it, and the way he, the speed at which he tells his story.
And I've offended Matt so much because I said Simonson's art wasn't great here that he's just left the room.
Yeah, the page where they jump off the bridge, I think, is absolutely phenomenal. Just the way it kind of. You got the wide shot, and then it gets in and falling down, and then the splash. I love that page, and the way that the different panels are different thicknesses, even how high they extend changes. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean the sequence is fine. Yeah, I'm just not a big fan of the line work in the faces. It's got this is going to sound really insulting, but it's got a little bit of that JRJR sort of.
No,
lines
I actually
in
know
it.
where you're coming from, and I think this is better. Don't get me wrong. I think it's just probably fair to say JRJR was quite heavily influenced by Simonson. He's around that time
sure.
that it makes sense.
I mean, no, I mean, I have no doubt that Simonson's past art is, there's a reason why he's a name in the industry. But I wasn't like super into this. I was like,
Yeah, like this isn't his peak best work. Like go look at any of his stuff. Like I think it's Thor, for example.
Thor run,
it's special, right? It's up there with some of the best comic book art of all time. This is not that, but I think it's solid. Even if his line work, maybe it's not as strong as it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just starting this story, Matt. If you want to have any final thoughts.
No, that was just super dark and altruistic Bruce.
Yeah. So next up, we have the Scott Snyder story, which
you could tell as soon as it got to like the Justice League double page spread. Because throw in cyborgs in there obviously, but take him out and you're basically like, this feels like the mind meeting scenes from his Justice League run. And I went, yeah. Would you a Snyder story?
So obviously this is this is definitely a sort of a continuity kind of take. It sort of starts in the sort of the world that we recognize and goes really wild with its ideas. Which is Gordon on a roof talking to Batman and talking about the importance of the signal and how, like, just in case the sun doesn't come up, we'll make our own damn light. So that's what the bat signal's there for, to show that morning's coming. And then the morning doesn't come. The sun's literally just disappeared. It's a week until the Earth just freezes to death.
Yeah. Didn't this happen in Justice League?
That was the moon that disappeared.
Oh, okay. It's been a while.
Yeah.
It seemed familiar.
I suppose it's similar enough concept. The sun disappears a way bigger deal though.
Much bigger.
Yeah. And it's basically Batman and Justice League goes through all this stuff. They fight Brainiac and the usual suspects, as he puts it. They try all these different things. We see the super family with like a shrunken sun in one of the bottles from Brainiac's ship and all the rest of it. And like basically they're forming a plan, and Gordon's like he's scared, and the one time he talks to Batman over the phone, he's scared because Batman's the least sure he's ever been. But he felt reassured, the most reassured he's ever felt when Batman came back. Because at the start of the story, it kind of sets up this idea. Was it he calls the Bad Knights Black Rooster.
Black Roosters, which I was trying to figure out the thing for.
Yeah. So Batman shows up at the end on the rooftop, like he always does, and Gordon says, "Is it just a Black Rooster?" And he nodded, and he says, "Oh, I never felt more, more still." And it never explains what the plan is so much. It's basically just, it's literally going to be the idea that they're going to make their own light. They'll make their own morning, so it ends with them turning on the signal. The art in this is gorgeous, by the way. Everything with Gordon on the rooftop.
Possibly Ivan Reis's best work.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the stuff with Justice League is good, but everything with Gordon and Batman on those rooftops with that bat signal behind them is just...
Wait. Best work since Green Lantern? Or best work?
No, best work, period.
I'll say I disagree.
No, don't get me wrong, I love his Green Lantern stuff. And I think Reis has always been a solid artist, but rarely one of my favorites. But this issue, I thought, this story, I thought he was spectacular. All the stuff on the rooftop with the shadows and stuff, the soft lines with the deep inks and the scratches. I love his cityscape. And then you've got that big, double page spreads in the middle where everything is just larger than life.
And it didn't actually go as far as I thought it was, because I was kind of, about halfway through the story, I realized kind of where it was going. And I thought, Matt's going to hate this, because I was expected to end with literally a bat sun. I was expecting a bat sun in the sky.
Had it done that, I would have thrown my iPad across the room and would have required a new one. So, but no.
But what it actually does is it leaves it kind of ambiguous as to what the actual solution is. It's just that Batman's found one. The Batman and Justice League have found one.
Right.
And
as they do.
And it's the more representative turning on the signal at the end. So I actually really like this story. And Snyder's Batman work is very up and down for me. But that's just
he's more down on the anthology style ones because he gets out there like more than he ever does, even in his continuity stuff, where it's just like, I got an idea, something that about what Batman represents, and he takes it to an extreme. And this is still fairly extreme. It's Batman building a machine to create a sun.
I mean, it may literally be the most extreme. But I think the reason why this one doesn't bother me, like a lot of the other ideas he has in his run, is because I don't think you're supposed to take it quite as literal as a lot of his actual other stories. It's more representative of the idea, the promise of the signal and what it means to the city and what it means to of hope.
I agree, because as much as it is literally because Batman, creating a machine to make a sun, the issue or the story doesn't feel about that. Like, sure, there's a quest to get that
it's
find
Gordon.
it, but
it's Gordon on the ground.
Yeah,
and I think that's the key
that's what
part
makes
of
it work.
It's Gordon's narration that anchors it all through everything, where it's his perspective, his worry, his it's fine. Batman came through in the end because Batman, but that's not how Gordon sees it. It's it's Batman. Did it again.
Yeah, Batman's there for him. Batman, when the chips are down and he thinks he's got no hope in the world, Batman's the one sort of lifeline he's got to keep him going, even after all these years. That's the heart of the story, and I think it works because you don't take it super literal. I mean, yes, in the story, technically, he's building a machine to recreate a sun. Like,
I'm really glad it didn't focus on like that. He goes, oh, there's some blueprints. They just did it, and in this story, that's all we need.
Yeah. I actually really like this one, so pleasantly surprised. Pin up by Jim Chung. Next, and then another pin up. This is two in a row. This was weird. The pacing of these pin ups was all over the place. This is the Liebe Hermann one. And the very classic looking cowl there as well.
Yeah. This is very early Batman, because even look, if these guys broke into my house to help me from someone trying to murder me, I would be just as afraid. Especially Robin. Robin looks like a peeping Tom.
It's true. I like that a lot of these in this issue they're doing a bit more of a grizzled Batman. Got some stubble. We don't see that enough.
Even the next story, the first page of the next story's got some stubble on Batman.
So it does. I had not remembered that. I just in general it seemed to be a theme in this issue.
So this is the Dan Jurgens story, which I'm assuming that Matt was into at the start, because this is called Generations Fracture. So even the name ties it into things. But before the actual timey-wimey of Generation stuff happens, this is a story of Batman taking on a gang which comprises of a Frankenstein's monster, a Dracula, a mummy, and a Wolfman.
All costumes.
It's like Monster Squad.
They're not like actual monsters.
No, but
that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. But I mean, this is the DC universe. These things all exist. We could have had them,
which makes the fact that them breaking into a museum to steal stuff on Batman's watch, and they're not an actual vampire Frankenstein's monster, mummy, werewolf, a bad idea.
I just love the idea because it's on Halloween. I love the idea that even Gotham's criminals are like, we'll dress up for Halloween.
Yeah, but it's like each of their stuff. So like the guy that's Frankenstein, he goes, those guys don't got an exoskeleton like me. It's like, well, clearly they thought all this through, and this was going to be their new gang of Universal monsters. So I love that.
So there's a bit of a fight, but the big thing is though is that Calendar Man's behind it. Batman takes him on, and
it's the Phantom. Yeah, I love it.
But it focuses on there's like a painting in the wall that says gallery donated by Dr. Thomas and Martha Wayne 1985, which is this is a sign that when reality splinters in a second, and then Batman the art changes, and I actually really like the art when it changes, by the way.
It's really great, and you can just see the costume change all of a sudden. It's really subtle.
He's got the purple gloves, and then the painting in the wall with the plaque under it says 1915 instead. So we're back in this is the era that obviously built up to when Batman became a thing in the 30s.
I like how it's a gradual shift to that as well. There's like an actual rewinding of time, because if you look at the one where it shatters, you have the Batman that we've been seeing through the story so far with the yellow oval, but then the bottom one is just the the black on grey for the bat, but he doesn't have the crazy long ears, so it's clearly not quite there yet.
Yeah, the ears get shorter with each one. Yeah, you can sort of see it changing. And the kill
and then
changes,
big again when it's the Detective 27 Batman.
Yeah, so then he comes out of the building, and there's a flash of light, and Commandy with a gauntlet on, which I'm assuming this is like a skeet, right?
It has something to do with Booster, because it talks about the old guy. Something about an older Booster in a suit. So yeah, I'm assuming it has to do with Skeets.
Yeah, Commandy talks about the old guy. He calls him the wrong name, and then the gauntlet corrects him. So I'm like, oh, is this like Skeet in a new form? Like Skeet's got this gauntlet now? Because it is the same color. It's it's gold.
It is, yeah. And I don't know if we mentioned, obviously the painting is now, it says 1915, but it was donated.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
He did.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I don't remember.
So he's basically saying, yeah, something's wrong with time. You have to come with me. We're building a team. Really emphasizes that, and takes Batman through a portal. And it just says continue then generations future state issue 1. So this is kind of neat that it builds up, because obviously I noticed the title, but I kind of forgotten about it a little bit because I was just sort of into it's the monsters and Batman's fighting them. It's kind of fun, nothing special. But then this happened, and then I'm like, wait a minute. Oh yeah, it's a generations lead in. Oh, we're doing continuity stuff.
Which we know from the Generations one shot what the team was, because we knew it was this Batman, we knew it was Commandy, we knew it was Booster. I think it had Sinestro in a Green Lantern uniform, a couple of others that we talked about in the solicits last week.
Yeah. So really cool. I thought it was a really fun lead in. It's not the best story in the book by any stretch, but it's really exciting because of what it's setting up.
It's just a reminder of, we have exciting stuff still coming.
Yeah, so that's a neat tease.
There's that, and it's Dan Jurgens doing timey-wimey stuff, which I'm here for. So.
Yeah, so it makes sense that Dan Jurgens is probably going to be one of the writers on some of these things coming up. So, no, really cool. The art in the first half was alright. I thought it was really good, though, once it changed for the classic style.
Yeah, there was some really good stuff in the first half as well, though. Honestly, my only problem when I was reading this, a critique, is when he first sees Calendar Man, and he just says, Julian Day, the Calendar Man. I'm like, one or the other. It felt like it felt like they didn't know if people would know who Calendar Man was. So they wanted to put in both, and I get that.
But even then, Julian Day is a great pun name for Calendar Man.
Oh, so absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not gonna beat him up too much for putting in both.
I think I wouldn't mind both being in the issue, but I just feel like the way he kind of said it there was clunky.
No, yeah, it's very awkward. Yeah. Although I would have loved the Harley Quinn TV show-esque, where he just is like, I don't have time for your BS, Calendar Man.
I'm so glad it got renewed for a third season.
Yes, it did.
Yeah. All right, so the final story in the book is the Mariko Tamaki story with Dan Mora on art, whose art's very nice. I like the colors, especially the blinds.
Cameron Von Villan. This is the art team on Once and Future. Dan Mora and great team.
This push through, I definitely need to read Once and Future. As if you telling me Beowulf and the second version.
The second half
wasn't enough.
What I will say, because this is set during Joker Wars, it mentions at the start. What I will say is that it says the Aparo Park District, which is fine. The only problem I have with that is that in the Bendis story they mentioned the Aparo building, so I thought it was kind of weird how both stories had that Aparo name thing.
I like when they do that sometimes. However,
do you know what? I'm gonna let it off, because near where I live. I say near. It's on the bus into the city. I have to go past a row of streets, and they're all Norman. I think it's Norman something. So you got Norman Street, Norman Mount, Norman Road, Norman Hill, Norman Grange, like 12 of them in a row like that. And I'm like, do you know what? I'm not bothered anymore when comics have the same reference in different places in the same city anymore.
That's fine, but you have Aparo Park and the Aparo building. You couldn't have changed that to something.
They're probably near each other.
Anyone, I don't know. Anyone else? I like it when they do that, when it honors people. Like it could have been O'Neill Park or the O'Neill building. We just had Aparo in the other one. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So this is taking place during Joker War, and it kind of centers around a young cop who ends up going to the Wayne Tower. Lucius Fox is there, and basically by the end of the story, there's the clown criminals, Joker's men or whoever who are there, but it actually ends up they end up thinking that Batman's behind whatever's been on there. I will say, I like Tamaki's writing, and I thought the narration was very good. I don't know if this story necessarily came across really well to me in the sense of really like it feels like it's here to more set up. And
it didn't have much to do, and it was weird to me that you say that the Tomasi one didn't really do anything with the ongoing stuff. That by the end, this one's it's the Black Case book, and so it's like so that'll continue in Detective, and the rest of this is the Joker War timeline. I think it's perfectly fine and readable for what it is. I think the art's fantastic and gorgeous.
Oh, the art's gorgeous, yeah.
Dan Mora is fantastic, and the colors, the page with the fire where all the greens, the yellows, the reds are popping. the pink glow of the city a lot of the times through the window is just spectacular.
The narration in the story is Bruce talking about how the first thing he ever did that was kind of stealthy was when he was 6, he snuck down and started opening his Christmas presents, and it was like the one rule that he broke under his father.
It's for his birthday.
Yeah.
Because you had to wait. But, when you're 6 and you see a table stacked with presents, you don't have discipline, So he talks about the discipline of a 6-year-old. So yeah.
So I was a little bit muddled and didn't really have too much of a story to it, and I don't necessarily blame Tamaki for that, because if this is just setting up whatever's going on in Detective, because she's not taking over Detective, right? I'm not forgetting.
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just felt kind of tacked on.
It felt like obligatory tie-in story, even though I think the narration's fine, the art is fantastic, but it just doesn't have much of a point beyond reminding us that these stories exist. Like Joker War is going on, and
which actually makes it
Facebook's coming up.
It actually makes it the biggest disappointment of the book, because I saw Tamaki and Dan Moore, I was like, oh yes, and the art is gorgeous and her writing's good, but I don't really blame her. I don't think it's like, conceptually, I don't think she came up with a story. I think maybe the narration was her idea to give it some sort of through line, so it had something to sort of build a narrative out of. But the actual events of the story, I don't think are all that exciting. It doesn't really, standalone wise, it just doesn't feel like it's doing much. So it ends in a bit of a downer, mostly just because I'm disappointed, because I thought, oh, I'll love the Tamaki one, because I usually love everything she writes. But she got saddled with the hey, tie into both of these things.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So hey, that was the last story of the book, though. So obviously the book as a whole will count towards things at the end, but I think it's probably worth saying what our favorite story in the issue is at this point before we rate it. So
yeah.
If people have favorites.
So mine's probably a toss up between the Jurgen story, just because of the timey-wiminess, but also I can't not love the Wolfman and Lupacino. That was written specifically for me. So I enjoyed it. I know it's not the best. But
I would have definitely not picked those.
I think I'm gonna go with the Fraction Zdarsky one. The Many Happy Returns. I love the pacing, just the point, the joke at the end, the art, hitting all my beats.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Rookie one with Rookie. I think that had a lot to say. But special shout out to the Bendis one as well, because I thought that was a lot of fun and really, celebrated all the other characters. But I was also pleasantly surprised with the Morrison one. No, honestly, like out of the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 stories, there was like maybe 3 I wasn't super into, maybe 4. So that's not bad going. Like, what's funny is if you take out all the ones that I don't like, you probably do have an 80-page special at that point, which is funny to me. It could have been the perfect 80-page special where I loved every story. But hey, no, I'll go with the Rookie one. All right, Matt, what are you giving the book out of 10?
I'm gonna give it a 7, because most of them were decent, and I didn't read 2 of them that might have knocked it down there. So yeah.
Connor?
Yeah, I'm also gonna give it a 7. And also I want to point out there's actually another pinup by Coipel at the back after the adverts for whatever's going on next.
All right.
That I didn't catch originally because I didn't click through far enough to see it. It's weird.
Yeah.
Weird place for that. I think you'd put it up towards the front,
especially when the front half had none.
Yeah. I'm a bit higher, I think, because even though there was a couple that I really didn't like because of the art or whatever, and Tamaki one was disappointing, but I think there's enough really good ones that I feel really positive overall, and a couple that I outright kind of loved. So I'm going to go with 8.5 on this one, which I think is fair overall. It's not an average. I'll always make that clear. Whenever we're rating an anthology like this, it's not an average between all the stories. It's more nuanced than that. Sometimes the ones that make you feel happier, outweigh the couple that don't make you feel so happy. But yeah, that was good. I thought as a special, it was a good celebration of the character. Obviously, it was huge. Helps that the week was quite quiet overall, though. Make it easier to fit in. So
that's if I had one more book this week, I probably wouldn't have read all of these, and I didn't even read all of them. So
if this was on like one of our typical like week 4 weeks, I think they have been recently. You'd be lucky if I read 3 of these.
So there you go. That's Detective Comics 1027.